two, one. Let's go. Welcome to the Fiction Addiction Podcast, a podcast where we go one-on-one with fiction creators, such as authors, filmmakers, actors, songwriters, and more. Each episode, we get the inside scoop on our guests' creative process, the ups and downs of their industries, and our guests also give out tips and tricks that help them become successful. And now, let's jump into the episode with your host, Chris C.L. Lowry.
All right, my next guest strives to awaken creativity in everyone that he encounters. He writes in a variety of genres, from crime thrillers and science fiction to self-help and romance. He also writes screenplays, poetry, and comic books. He is a firm believer in the limitless potential of people. And he goes by the hashtag your favorite author. Ladies and gentlemen, N.M. Porterfield, my guy, what's going on? Thank you for jumping on the Fiction Addiction Podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Listen, man, you seem to be a man of many talents. So let's start with your life as an author. So when did that passion begin for this thing called writing?
It's pretty interesting. So I went through a variety of different avenues to get to the point where I was like, oh, I need to be writing books. I always wrote poetry. That's what I first started writing, was poetry. And then I went from poetry to doing music. I actually managed a label and performed music for about 5 years. But then I thought back to, I really wanted to focus on what my passion really was. And even though I love music and I love making music, my passion was actually for storytelling. It's for telling stories. And so I decided that I was going to write a book. So the very first book I did was The Lover's Manual. And that was a self-help book that uses some elements from my own life and some of the things, my own experiences and things that I've been through, to kind of guide people through relationships. It's a very practical tool for dating and relationships. So that's what got me started. But then once I knocked that one out, after that, it was just anything that popped into my head. I tried to lay it into, make it into something real, make it into something tangible. And so I just continuously write all day.
Damn. So what was it about poetry that drew you to it?
So poetry is to me, it's like telling a story with your soul. When you, I first started writing poetry probably in like elementary school, and it was like rudimentary stuff back then. But as my life continued to grow and as I continued to experience things and experience life, the way that I could articulate my feelings and my thoughts began to expand. And so poetry for me was just telling a short story in a few words from my perspective. And like everything I look at, like, as you said, I do like comic books, I do screenplays, I still write for music, even though I'm not performing anymore, but all of it's storytelling to me. And so when I look at everything that I do, whether it's writing a poem, writing a movie, writing a book, writing the storyline for a comic book, it's all storytelling for me. And that's kind of where I sit with it. But poetry was just it was like my gateway drug. It opened the door for me to tell my story, in a sense.
So some jumping from poetry to music, how did that transition come about?
Interestingly enough, so someone who had heard my poetry asked me if I would ghostwrite for a friend of theirs that was a rapper.
Oh, wow.
And so she played the guy's music for me, and I was like, yeah, I don't really like it. but it kind of opened my eyes. So I was like, oh, well, I could do it if this guy did it. And so, that's kind of what I did is,
right.
the guy that she played for me was terrible, but I was like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I hopped into music, and then I learned that it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Easy,
There's a
right?
lot more to it. So, I had to learn cadences. I had to learn eight counts. I had to learn how to deliver my voice because, like, spoken word and rap are not the same thing. Um, I had to learn how to breathe correctly on a track so that my voice, hit the right, you know, inflections and things like that. So, there was a lot of learning that happened there, but I had a great time. It was me and seven other artists that I managed. We all ended up, traveling when we performed in front of labels. We did, a lot of great things, and some great experiences came from that. But ultimately, I knew that although I loved making music, that was not where I wanted to be in my life.
Mm. So you said something real important. You said there's a big difference between spoken word and rap.
Yeah.
So break down that difference for me in terms of writing and also the performance aspect of both.
So for me, spoken word is a lot freer. It's a lot more. It's a lot less restricted. There's certain people, if you like, I use Wale as an example. Wale is a poet, but he's also a rapper. But if you ever pay attention to the way that his voice is on the beat, there are times where he's not exactly on beat the way other rappers would be. Most rappers have a very strict way of delivering their lyrics, and so you'll have a cadence or something that is kind of repetitive that you can catch on to. Whereas Wale is more of a poet than a rapper. He's still a dope rapper, but you can
Right.
tell, and you can kind of pick out the fact that he's trying to say what he wants to say versus making what he say fit the beat. And so,
Right.
rappers who, being a rapper or a hip hop artist is more so about being able to make your flow and delivery and everything come together. Whereas, as doing spoken word, for me, it was just, I just need to say what I gotta say, even if it don't flow. Like, you can go off a rhyme scheme with rap, but sometimes spoken word don't have a rhyme scheme. Sometimes you don't have to rhyme in poetry. But if you were to do that in
Mm.
rap and you were to just be saying stuff, like, after a while people be like, yeah, this sounds like hot garbage. So
Right. They're gonna be like, who the
exactly,
hell? What the hell's
exactly,
going
exactly.
on?
But yeah, those are the main differences. And that was probably the one thing that I had to learn, especially when it came to writing hooks, because when I first started, all of my hooks were really, really long. And I was like, man, the point of a hook is for it to be something catchy that people can, remember and say, and it can draw them into the rest of the song. And all of my hooks were so long, you might as well said it was a verse. So I had to learn that, but
Mm.
that came from being kind of a student of the art form. With anything I do, I'm a big advocate for researching and sitting back and learning from people who are doing it better than you. Even with my books, I do the same thing.
Mm. So how was the music management portion of your life? You know what I mean? That seems like a interesting and frustrating part of the business.
It absolutely was. One of the things about music management was that no matter how much you want success for someone, you can't make them want it as much as you do.
Mm.
And so the things that I wanted to do and the things that I would do for myself, I would expect all the other artists to have that same level of drive. And people had different, like, some people had kids, some people had different responsibilities, and they were like, man, I can't be in the studio for 12 hours a day. Like,
Right.
that's ridiculous. But um, I would say that even though there were frustrating parts of it, um, making music with someone else is one of the best experiences of my life. Like, getting in the studio and just vibing with someone. I'm all about creativity. I'm all about learning and expressing myself creatively, whether it's through music, poetry, books, or whatever. And, being able to get in the studio and hear the ideas that someone else comes up with and then create your own ideas off of that. And y'all are kind of in tandem creating this new thing together is just a great feeling. So it was frustrating. It's difficult trying to coordinate with other people in their lives and push people to be what you want them to be. But at the same time, like there was a lot of great times that came from that. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So we got the suspense, you got the sci-fi, you got the self-help, you got the romance, you got the poetry. How are you able to navigate through so many genres, and why do you think you're able to do so?
Man, I honestly think that the if I were to say that I had one genre or one area that I focus on is probably sci-fi, fantasy more than anything, just because of the fact I love being able to stretch the possibilities of what can happen.
Mm.
There's no one genre that I write in. Like I'll write in everything. I've written action, I've written horror, I've written drama. But when I the way I navigate it is really it's kind of based on my creative process. Um, I don't really do writer's block that well. Um, so whenever I get to a point where I'm writing and I'm stuck creatively, instead of sitting and dwelling on that one thing, I just start writing something new. So if I'm writing a book and I'm like stuck in a chapter, I'm like, I don't know where to go next. Done my outline, I've done everything, and I'm just stuck. Instead of staying there and being stagnant, I would write a completely new concept to get my creative juices flowing again. And then all of a sudden now I have a brand new book I'm working on. And then now that my creative juices are flowing, I can come back to this and then I can work on the thing that got me stuck before. But it's really just what hits me. I mean, I'm a fan of I'm a fan as well as a creator of the arts. So um, everything that I create are the stories that I want to see myself. Like I like to see action. I like to see sci-fi. I like to see fantasy. So because I'm a fan of that genre, that's why I write in that genre mostly. But every once in a while, a story will hit me that's not in a genre that I typically write in, and if the story comes to me, it comes to me, and I just roll with it.
So since you're a sci-fi and you do the action and crime, I got a very important question for you.
Absolutely.
So, because I had it with another writer. So, for you personally, do you kill more people off in your suspense or in your like sci-fi fantasy film book?
Yeah, I probably kill more people off in my suspense. The first suspense book that I wrote was Thrill of the Hunt. And when I sent it off to my editor for her to review it, she was like, email me back every few chapters, like, I can't believe you killed that person. I can't believe you killed that person. I'm so sad that person died. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I was having my Game of Thrones moment for a second, where it's like every time you got a character you like, they're gone. But yeah.
Now break that down real quick, because readers, they freaking hate it because like they fall in love with these characters, and our sick minds as writers, like we know when we're writing, like, oh, this is gonna be a character they're gonna love, and then we're like,
Yeah.
we gotta go. So break down that process down now for all the readers that are gonna be listening, so they can know what we go through when we choose that moment to kill somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, it really just depends on how the story is flowing. I'm somebody that I like organic, uh, you know, connections with people. So I don't want to force like I don't want to kill someone just to kill someone. Whenever I do it, it's usually something that is developing within the story, and that should have happened. Somebody was supposed to die, and that person just happened to be there. I'm not just killing random people for no reason. Like usually it follows some type of logic within the story. But the reasoning for killing off, sometimes for killing off characters that are actually beloved characters is because it adds to the motivations, it adds to the character development for my main character, or it maybe it's part of the reason that the main character and the protagonist end up having their conflict uh, in the first place. So it really just depends. Different stories have different reasons for people dying. You know, I don't really know. It kind of just depends on how the story flows. Like I really want everything to be organic, and I want it to feel like something that would happen versus something that's forced. Um, but yeah, I don't want anyone who reads my books,
Right.
please don't take it personally. Like, you know, it is, it kind of is what it is sometimes.
What's the most people you killed? Well, characters. What's the most substantial main characters you
Oh,
killed in one book?
it is probably Thrill of the Hunt. That's right now it's a 2-book series, and everyone that the main character came in with the exception of 2 people, is dead now, basically. So, yeah, yeah,
Damn.
it was pretty brutal, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's the nature of that story. Like I mean, it's kind of like a John Wick-esque type book. So people are supposed to die. Like this, the nature of the business, people are supposed to die. They're not. There aren't going to be too many happy endings when you live that type of lifestyle. But yeah, I tried not to force. It, like I said, it was over the span of 2 books. So you know, a lot of those characters, some of the characters probably should have died sooner than they did. Um, you know, but everything happens for a reason. And when the 3rd book comes out, there will probably be even more people dead. Might be everybody dead. You never know.
Yo, I gotta learn how to make memes, man. I'm gonna do the joint that's going around. It's gonna be like in Porterfield, and quote you, uh, when I kill a character, it has to be for a purpose and meaningful. And then put also in Porterfield, everybody gotta die.
Hey, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
God, gotta get everybody. And when it's everybody, everybody gotta go. So, what was when you started writing, when you start coming up with these concepts for books, and you realize, all right, I got novels here, I got short stories, I got good work that could be published. What was the idea? What was the goal? Was it traditional?
So
Was it
I've
self?
kind of
What was
had
it from the beginning?
I don't know, I've had an unusual path. Like so my first book, I was like, let me do Amazon. You know, I'm gonna do the create space, and I'm gonna go that route because that's the easiest way, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And so my very first book I put on Amazon. It's actually still up there right now, and I probably need to reach out to somebody about that. But I found issue with a couple things with the way Amazon wanted me to do it. First, I didn't like the idea of giving my book away for free. I understand that the reason for doing that was that, you know, they wanted to generate interest, and, you know, if we give it away for free to some people, then, you know, of course, you know, eventually people will start talking about it, and then you'll have more, you know, people with your book. So I understood that, but I didn't really like it because of how much time I put into my book. The very first book I wrote, it took me 3 years to finish it. That was before I didn't know the process. I didn't, you know, I would write chapters and erase whole chapters, and I would stop and be like, this ain't working. I can't do this. And it took me 3 years to finish my first book. Um, so when I finally finished it, and then Amazon was like, we're going to give away your book for free for a couple of days, I was like, I'm not really feeling that. Um, but I, but ultimately I ended up going with it. But then my issue came when I went on Amazon to kind of just like Googling myself, and I see other people were selling my book that weren't like retailers, like people who had, like, John Hammond 2020 was selling my book and selling my book for more than I was selling my book for. So exactly, other people were profiting off my work, and so
Wow, so you profited.
I wasn't too keen on doing that anymore. So I was like, going forward, for at least for until I know enough to be able to protect myself completely and fight against something like that. I'm going to sell my books through my own website. And so that's what I did for the next few years. I sold my books through my own website. And so in order to find a happy place, I had to change my selling point because now I was printing off my own books. I was mailing off my own books, and it was a little more extra work, but I realized that one, I was profiting more because Amazon was taking like 40% or something of every book that I sold. So I was making more for the bottom dollar, which was good for me. But I also felt like people appreciated it more when they were coming from me. It's coming directly from me, and then you're getting something in the mail from me, not from Amazon, not from just clicking a button and someone sending it. And a lot of times, if you were close by, I would hand deliver it. Like I had no issue with hand delivering a book. I would sign it for you and everything if you wanted me to. My signature is terrible, but I would do all of that for you. And so I felt like I was connecting more with readers that way than from just having my link on Amazon and saying, hey, go to this link. Like now, but on the other side of that is it forced me to have to learn how to sell myself.
I was about to say that. Yeah, you had to learn how to actually hustle doing it that way, because most people depend on Amazon thinking they're going to do it for them, but you're actually learning how to market, sell yourself, what works, what doesn't work,
Exactly. Yeah.
in your own way. You know what I mean? So,
which
I can see that happening as well.
And it's still a process that, of course, I'm still, learning. You're going to learn new things every day. But I can see a major difference. So like the first book that I sold, on my website, on my own website, I priced it at $10. And then I was like, well, at $10, and then I'm looking at how much it costs for me to print the book, costing me half that to print the book, and then it's costing me a certain amount to actually mail the book off. I'm really not making a profit. Okay, I need to up my price point. Let me raise the price point on my book. And then it was like, okay, let's price why am I pricing my book this way? I started to think about, I was like, okay, is my book, more or less valuable than a book that someone will find in Barnes and Nobles? I don't think so. I put time into it. And so even though I may not have the name of some of those authors, I still feel like my time is just as valuable. And, of course, I'm going to sell my stuff because I believe in it. So, I started pricing my stuff accordingly to make sure that, one, I wasn't losing money, and two, so that, I feel like people will respect the price point. If they ever had intentions of buying it, they would respect the price point no matter what you're going to charge for it. Right. So if you look at things like BMW, they don't have to advertise. They don't have to say, "Oh, our cars are going on sale." BMWs don't go on sale really. People are going to buy them for the price that they're worth because the value is perceived in the price. Mm-hmm. And so if I want people to see value in my stuff, I need to price it accordingly. Like, I think if I price, and not to knock anyone who does this, but this is just my thoughts. If I price my book at 99 cents, I think that's how they're going to view it as far as the value for it is. They're going to say, oh, it's only $1. You know what I'm saying? But, if I say, oh, my book is $15, my book is $20, it's a little more, you have to value it a little more if you're going to buy into it, so, but it's on me to be able to sell that to a person. So, ultimately, if I can't convince you that my book is worth $15, $20, then you're not going to buy it.
Right.
So
not using Amazon as a platform to sell your books, is that a decision you regret, or was it a good decision for your writing career?
I think it was a good decision for my writing career because I feel like I set myself apart from other authors in that this, like, when I tried to like I said, I'm a student of the game. So whenever I see other people do stuff, I'm like, okay, where does J.K. Rowling sell her books at? where does Stephen King sell his books at? Like, yeah, you can buy them from Amazon, but they have their own website. They sell
Right.
themselves. That's what people are buying. They buy J.K. Rowling. They buy Stephen King. They're not saying, oh, let me go to Amazon. And, maybe some people do, but they're selling their name. And that's what I want to, that's the main thing I wanted to do is develop my brand enough that um, my name is going to sell itself. And that's kind of, that's always the focus is, do I want to be just someone else that fell in the mix? And I think me doing music beforehand kind of helped me see the need to differentiate myself. Because when I first
Mm-hmm.
started doing music, I didn't realize when I first started doing music how many people do music. It's like
Oh yeah.
when I
Hell yeah.
when I first started doing music, that's when I was like, oh man, everybody does music. Okay. Well, how am I going to stand out? What am I going to do that's going to be different? Like, how am I going to set myself apart? And so, I started focusing on things like, okay, I don't want to rap over the same type of beats that everybody else is using. I need to focus on making sure that my sound is different than everybody else. Like, anybody can go out there and do like a trap style beat or something like that. But who is standing apart right now? Who sounds different? Who is moving different? And so that's kind of how I framed myself with my music. And I took that same knowledge over to my books and was like, okay, there are thousands and thousands of authors out there right now. How am I going to
Right.
stand apart? How am I going to set myself as something different? And that's kind of where I went with that.
And one of the things I noticed that you got going on that a lot of authors don't are the book trailers. The trailers for your book to promote your book.
Yes.
How did that idea come about, and how'd you go about executing that?
I'm a big movie fan, and so I'm the guy that when I go to movies, I actually want to watch the previews. And so I think with anything, we're visually stimulated creatures, and so that's why if someone were to say something to you, um, over the phone versus if you were to see it like in person, it's going to impact you differently. And if your mind can make, if your eyes make a connection to something, if you see something visually, it leaves a different impression on you than if you were to just hear it word of mouth or see a post about it. And so, I definitely wanted to say, okay, let me do something different with my book so that it can get people excited about it. And so, especially with the trailer for Candy, people were like, "Oh yeah, that looks like something I want to check out." They don't even may not even know
Right.
what the book's about, but it's reels you in enough that you want to ask questions. Also making sure that you got your book covers or things that would catch people's eye and things like that. There's a lot to it, but the book trailers really just come from my love of movies. I'm a big movie fan, and so it is the same thing like me being something first and then taking it and adding it to my own craft is the idea behind that.
So I want to go back a little bit,
Okay.
back to our discussion about Amazon real quick. Because I see so many writers talking about, especially the Kindle Unlimited program and the pages being read, and then the minuscule amount of money you make off of that through that program.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talked about um, knowing your worth. You know what I mean? I think that's the way to sum it up. Knowing your worth, knowing what that time, that blood, sweat, and tears putting into those books mean to you, and knowing, like you said, knowing your price point so that you are conducting yourself as a business. So for, I would say aspiring authors, but I won't even say aspiring authors because there's some seasoned authors out here that are a slave to Amazon too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They don't see any other way. So what piece of advice would you give to any author in general in terms of knowing their worth, knowing their price point, and being free to make those decisions and growing themselves as a brand and business?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing I would do is I would say, look at what you have to offer. Look at what you wrote. whether you're putting out quality stuff or not. So if you know that you have a great story, if you know people want to hear it, why sell yourself for $1? Like, think of, I want like most people don't think about the hours that they put into writing this book. And so if you were to say, okay, I write, let's say that this was an hourly job that you were paid like minimum wage or something like that, or most authors made minimum wage. If you're selling your whole book for less than $1, if you're selling it for 99 cents, and you were making, or that the company was making $7.25 an hour off you, but you're only getting back less than $1 for every book that you make, like the numbers just don't add up. The math doesn't add up. Like, you're putting in so much work just to sell it for $1, and you're only getting a percentage of that dollar. And it's like you have to sell so many copies of your book for it to even be worth it, for it to even make sense. And, I'm not saying that everyone, just abandon Amazon at once, but what I'm saying is that you should definitely find avenues to make the most for your money, make the most for your book, for your story. And not that it's all about making money, because for me, it's more so about sharing my stories with people than making money. But at the same time, this is what we want to do for a living. And so if you know that this is how you want to sustain yourself, can you sustain yourself selling your book for $1 a piece? Like, if you can, if you look at your books and you say, man, I make enough money selling my books at $1 a piece to sustain myself, then you're cheating yourself. Because if you can sell that many books at $1 a piece and take care of yourself, you should be selling them for $5 a piece and making bank. You should be selling for $10 a piece on your own and making twice as much. You should be doing speaking engagements if you're making money like that. So just, I would say anybody definitely take the time to say, like, how can I do more? How can I get more back for for the work that I've done,
Yeah, that's real, man. So sticking on this topic, what do you think would be a solution, and what would be an improvement for a company like Amazon so that it is beneficial for independent writers?
Oh man. It really would just depend on what tools Amazon would provide, because right now it's allowing you to place your books on their store, but it's not giving you the real tools to grow your followership. Something that would allow you to grow your readers. Some type of, I don't know, because right now they do have like the promotional giveaways, and technically that's supposed to grow your readers, but you know, people are reading a few pages here and there. Um, Maybe allowing each individual author to set up kind of their own store within Amazon. I think that might be an option. Yeah,
Crazy.
like this is the NM Porterfield section, and everything from NM Porterfield is listed here, and uh, driving more sales back to the user, because Amazon is able to basically make money off of doing none of the work. All that they're doing is selling their name, and they're getting a percentage off of that. And for some people that's okay. But if I'm selling my work, my name should be the big price point. And if my name is the big price point, I should make majority of the money. That's just my thoughts.
Mm. So, music management and then transitioning into writing. I'm surprised you didn't get into the publishing side of things. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
why was that?
So I actually do have a publishing company.
Oh, there we go.
It is. So it is not my focus as of right now, because I have some book stuff that I'm focusing on now, and I am notorious for overworking myself. So I don't want to. One of my changes for this year is to be more focused and more driven on certain goals and making sure I achieve certain things before moving forward. Because I will take on 100 tasks and miss sleep and everything, just trying to do everything. So
Right.
I do have a publishing company, but my focus on growing that will be in the year following is Resonate Print and Publishing. That will be the focus of 2021. But the focus of 2020 is to definitely do a little more press for my books, make sure that I'm getting the word out there for my books, selling myself, and developing my brand as an author.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of the Fiction Addiction Podcast by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
You mentioned overworking yourself, taking on so many tasks. I think I don't know. So do you think that, because we all hear that phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, but on the flip side, you have procrastination, and you also have untapped talent to compete with. You know what I mean? So how do you find a balance of taking on projects, like you said, you're a screenwriter, comic book writer, author, poet. So how do you find the balance of taking on tasks and being good at them without losing opportunity and not taking opportunities? Like, where's the balance in that?
Absolutely. So I focus 85% of my time and energy now. I focus it on the things that I know I am good at and that I have control over, and that is mostly writing books. Um, I spend about 10% of my time working on my comic books because I'm not an artist. And so I don't draw them myself. I need an illustrator. And because I have to work with somebody, that's something that I have to dedicate time to aside from my books. I used to be someone who was like, all right, I'm gonna work on the comic book and work on the books and work on the screenplay and work on poetry. And I realized that that was an inefficient way for me to do things. Mostly because I would have things like deadlines would come up, and then I would be trying to rush my work, trying to make sure that I got things done. And so to avoid that, I was like, okay, I set my goals at the beginning of the year, and then I set goals every month and every week. And so my goals at the beginning of the year may be that I'm going to finish this many books by the end of the year. And then every month I say, okay, and I'm going to work on this many chapters. And each week I say, I'm going to write on this on Monday, write on this on Tuesday, take a break from writing on Wednesday. And I have to organize myself that way. Because if I don't, and I'm sure anyone who's a creative gets in this where, you have an idea for something and you just want to run with it. But there are times where, and that's what I used to do, is I would just run with it. And then I'd be like, oh man, I was supposed to work on this and I didn't finish it. But now with me being more focused, I've been doing this for a little while now. So now I know, okay, even if something is a good idea, I'll write down all the pertinent information. I'll make a note and then I'll come back to it at a time when I have time. Because if I continue to just, take side project after side project, regardless of how good it is. And I had a friend who actually reached out to me about writing the script for a YouTube series. And I had to, initially, my first thought was, yeah, I'll do it. Absolutely. I'd love to do it. I want to get my name on anything I can. But then I had to tell him, let me schedule a call with you, because one, working with you means that I have to work on your timetable. And so if you don't have all your stuff together, I'm not going to have all my stuff together. We're going to be a mess. And then now all of my other stuff is going to suffer because I'm trying to work with you on top of working with me. So I told him, I was like, we're going to have to set a call. And if I have time and if you have a schedule that works with mine, then I can write it for you. But I can't be a yes man to stuff anymore, especially with what I'm trying to do with my books now. But ultimately, I want to create everything. Like, I would love to work on every script, every comic book, every movie, every play, every book. Like I would love to work on everything, but time is one of the few things you can't get back. And the time that I spend on other people's stuff, or the time that I spend on stuff that's not in line with the goals I set for myself, is taken
Right.
away from the things that I need to be focused on. So, although I am a jack of all trades and I
So
do all those
obviously,
things, like this
from the
year, I
independent
can't even
standpoint, you handle
work on a comic book script
so many
until I
tasks.
finish certain
Of
book
getting your
milestones.
books from point A to point Z. Those tasks
So I'm
include
definitely staying focused this
finding your
year.
editors, illustrators, and cover designers. So I'm gonna break those down one by one. So for your comic
Okay.
books, how do you find your illustrator? How do you know when you found the right illustrator based on their talent, based on your storyline?
So I use a lot of the freelance services just to kind of get an idea. Um, I've had, I've kind of put things out on Facebook before. Hey, looking for an illustrator. Um, I've found that those individuals, a lot of people will reach out to me, like, yeah, I'm interested, but those people will just be interested and they're not serious about their craft. Um, One of the things I've learned, and I actually learned this back in music too, is that if you can't do something yourself, don't get a friend or don't get someone you know to do it. Pay somebody, because people are more motivated by, they'll be more motivated if they're being paid to do something versus if you ask them to do it or if you see if they're interested. And so I use a lot of freelance services like Upwork or Fiverr and things like that. And then I'll just put the project out there, and if they don't deliver something that is quality to me, then I'll let them know, like, hey, you're not the one, or I thank you for your time. Um, I've thankfully, for my first two comic books, the first one being Ghost and the second one being Golem Gladiators, I was able to utilize the same artist for both. And it's a guy. He's actually Argentina, located in
Mm.
Argentina, and so he was really easy to work with the first time. And I've worked with other artists before that did not deliver. I had a guy once who, he told me, he was like, I'll have the first few pages to you for your comic in a week. And 3 weeks later, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, oh, my bad. My computer got stolen. I had to start over.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, communicate that with me. I'm okay with that. Just let me know what's going on. Another week goes by. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He was like, oh, we're having issues with the power, and I'm not able to access the internet. I was like, okay, so this is not somebody I
Oh
can
come
work
on.
with. Yeah,
Right.
but the guy who ended up drawing my first two comics, he's real easy to work with. I send him my script. He'll send me a SketchUp and he'll ask me, does everything look right? Is everything placed the way you like it? Are there anything you want me to change? And then I'll be like, yay or nay. I send it back to him. Then he'll come back with the inking and everything, and he'll be like, okay, how does this look? Does everything still look good? Yeah, it looks good. Send it back to him again. He comes back a third time with the color and everything. He's like, okay, how about now? Does everything still look good? Everything looks great. Good. Then we move forward. Like, he was very professional. I love working with him, and I'll probably work with him going forward, especially for my Golden Gladiator series.
Mm. So in your process of choosing an editor, what are some of the things you look for, because you are writing in different genres? So do you have to change up different editors for different genres, or what's your process like?
With editors, it was a little bit different for me because my very first book, I did not use an editor on, and that hurt me, but it was a good learning experience. So people were coming back like, hey, man, what is this? What, like, don't edit your own stuff, people. Like, hire somebody. Definitely hire somebody. But the the first editor I found was somebody who I put it out there. I was looking for an editor, and she got back to me and was like, hey, like, I'm pretty cheap. I really just want to be able to read your book, but I could read your book and then I'll do the editing at the same time. And so that's what she was doing, is she was basically like, I'll do the editing for you for cheap, but I really just want to be able to read new books. And so she was a book lover, and I worked with her for two books. And I really liked working with her. Then going forward, I ended up using a friend of mine who had an English degree to do some editing for me, and that one also went well. She I think no, using her was a little different because she didn't want to offend me, and I was like, look, I'd rather it like I'm not here because I'm an editor. I'm here because I'm a writer. I need that criticism. If I'm wrong, if if I spell something wrong, if I don't use a comma in the right place, let me know. That's what you're here for. I'm okay
Right,
with it.
right.
But beyond that, it's just anybody who one, can fit my price point. Like I know editors can get pretty expensive. I mean, I've seen some where, especially with some of the books that I've written, because I've got books with like 300,000 words in them. And so when you got people who are charging per word, they're charging like, you know, 0.02 cent per word, like that can rack up pretty quick. So, um, yeah.
Real
So
quick.
I'm definitely, I'm price conscious, but I'm also want to make sure I get quality editing work. So there's definitely a few different places. Like I said, those same freelance websites, there are people on there who will edit your stuff for you for a few $100. Um, and then of course, just looking for people, there may be people in your circle who are avid readers or who are great with English and just willing to do it for you. But you got to use your discretion on that because what they edit is going to be a reflection of your writing. Nobody's ever going to come back and be like, man, your editor is trash. They're going to be like, oh, you can't write. So, definitely definitely make sure that
Right.
you vet the person. And even with my first editor, even though she marked everything up and told me what changes to make, I still went back and I read over it after the fact just to make sure there wasn't anything else that was missed. But she did a great job.
Mm. So how do you go about, I guess, choosing your cover designer? Because it could be illustrated, but I'm sure it's somebody different than
It
the
just
illustrator.
depends. Some of the covers that I have, I've made myself, and then some of them, yeah, I made a few of
Oh,
mine
really?
myself. And then some of the ones, you know, is finding a cover designer is because there's so many people that do books. Um, you have to be careful because sometimes people will kind of give you something generic, and it won't really fit your book. Like I had somebody one time who gave me a cut. Like, I was like, let me go to a freelancer and see if I can find somebody. I gave them the name. All they needed was the name, according to them, was the name of my book. And I gave them the name of my book, and they came back and gave me a cover. And then I'm like on Google, I was like, oh, this same cover was used for something else. So yeah, that's not going to work for me. And I think that's one thing
Right.
that happens in the urban genre a lot is that a lot of the images will be recycled and reused, and it's easy for your cover to look like somebody else's cover. I've actually seen other authors get into arguments because they're like, "You stole my cover," and it's like, I mean, it's not that they stole
Right.
your covers; that whoever sold them the cover is hustling people. But yeah, sometimes I have an idea for a cover, and if someone can't make it, I'll try and make it myself. um, so like Candy, the cover for Candy, I made that one. I actually like went and got the pieces of candy. I got the gun and everything and laid it a certain way and did all that. What's another Journey the Traveler? I made that one using some different effects and some stock footage and stuff like that. And sometimes it comes from just kind of tweaking the stuff that's already out there. Like with Journey the Traveler, that cover, when you look at it, it looks like something, space and futuristic and all that. And I did a double exposure of a girl's face and a kind of like a galaxy in the background. And then I did a mirror reflection of the girl's face. So when you look at it, it looks like, the faces are kind of pulling apart from each other. But I know for a fact that unless somebody steals my cover, no one else is going to have that cover out there because of what I did to make it. Um, but yeah, you just got to be careful sometimes. Cover selection. I mean, that's people always say don't judge a book by its cover, but that's exactly what people do. When they see your cover, that's what's going to sell them first. So if your cover's not right,
Absolutely.
or if it's not enticing, or if it doesn't look like something people want to buy into, you probably won't be able to sell that much. So, definitely take time to invest in someone who's going to make a cover that tells the story of your book that fits what you're trying to, tell people.
So how do you think an author who is reaching out to a cover designer can be careful not to get I'm not even going to say ripped off because in some aspects the cover designer is actually doing real work, but it's just with, like you said, it's with common stock photos, photos of different models and things like that. So your book is going to look like somebody else's. Somebody else is going to have the same character. So how can you avoid that in a creative way?
Absolutely. I mean, what I would do is I would ask questions beforehand. Just ask about their process. Like, there's some book cover designers who will tell you, like, I'm going to use one photo and basically all I'm going to do is add some text to it. Like, ask them what their process is. And, if you're not satisfied with the process, don't do it. Don't pay for it. Don't waste your money on something that's, at the end of the day, not going to live up to what you want for your book. If you have an idea of something that you want for your book, and you already kind of have a visual of what you want it to look like, communicate that. Say, hey, like, I have an idea of a guy in this corner, and there's a car in this corner, and a girl down here, and this is what she should look like. And if they can't make it like that, don't pay for it. Like, let them know, like, hey, if you can't make that, I'll go to someone else. Somebody will be able to make your cover, but you got to be able to be clear and communicate what it is that you want your cover to show.
Mm. So screenplay writing, how'd you get into that?
I got into screenplay writing because someone told me one of my books should be a movie, and so I was like, let me kind of learn the process, and I went and got some screenplay writing software, and I'm still an amateur in that because of course I haven't had my movie made yet, but I'm hoping that in 2021 or 2022 I'll be able to start filming a short for one of my books, and we can start there.
That's crazy. So what's the difference between, in your opinion, writing a novel and writing a screenplay?
So with screenplays, it's very, for me, it's very heavily dependent on dialogue and setting, not so much on the details. So if you look at a screenplay, it may say something like setting living room, uh, girl and her mother are sitting on couch staring at TV. And then the dialogue is where you build that scene up. So, and like some of these, I was think they were talking about Quentin Tarantino when he writes his scripts. They're like maybe 100 pages, if that. He only gives you basically what you need to know, and then they'll fill the rest in post production and all that stuff. But with a book, like it's more than just there's a girl sitting on the couch with her mother. Like it's, the girl is sitting on the couch, she's dreading having a conversation with her mother about what happened to her today. She knows how her mother will react. She remembers how her mother acted last time, da 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 da. And that's all just one paragraph. But when, you're doing a screenplay, you don't necessarily need all that. It's more so focused on, you set the scene, you tell the story, or you tell the encounter between the two individuals. So, if mom and daughter are on the couch, it's going to tell the emotion. Daughter is upset. Daughter says to mother, why did you do that to me? Mom says to daughter in response with a terse look on her face, you know why I did that to you. And that's going to be the guts of it, because the actors, it's going to be their job to kind of pull the scene out and make it into something believable. It's not going to be as in depth as a book, which is why a lot of people, when they see books compared to movies, they're like, "Oh, the book is so much better than the movie," because the book gives you more. Like it immerses you more into the actual story, into the actual characters. Like there are things that you're going to get from a book that you may not necessarily get from seeing a scene played out with two people.
Absolutely. So what is your writing setup? Like what type of vibe do you have to create to get your like the creative juices flowing?
For me, it's funny. I do most of my writing on the go. I'm a family man. I got a wife and two kids, two boys that keep me pretty busy. So a lot of my a lot of my writing is either on the go or away from the house. Whenever I'm not doing family stuff, I might pack my laptop up and go somewhere, get a coffee or get a tea or something, and just sit down and write for a few hours. Or um, a lifesaver for me is Evernote. I use Evernote for everything. So
Mm.
Evernote, I have it synced to my laptop and to my phone. And so anything that I start writing on my phone, let's say I'm out somewhere, like I know I used to be really bad about leaving scraps of paper everywhere because I would start writing on something and then be like, where did I put it? I use
Oh
Evernote.
yeah.
Yeah. So I use Evernote, and I might start a chapter in Evernote. And then when I get home, since it's synced to my computer, I can just pick right up where it left off. I don't have to like retype it or anything. It just automatically syncs once I connect to the internet. So Evernote is a big lifesaver for me. But yeah, I do a lot of writing on the go. I'm someone who's always busy. I'm ripping and running. I travel a lot. Um, and then, with the kids, I'm always doing something, taking someone to practice or to recitals or something. So I'm pretty busy. I run around a lot, but I still keep writing in my downtime. So
So how do you find the balance being a family man? How do you find the balance to um dedicate time to being with your family, but also dedicating time to your business?
I have certain days that I say this is an absolute writing day. Like I go to the wife and I say, "Hey, babe, take the kids, leave, get them out my hair for a few hours because I need to be able to focus and do what I need to do." Thankfully, everyone in my household goes to bed pretty early too, so I also get a lot of writing time at night. I'm an insomniac diagnosed, so I usually don't go to sleep until about 3 a.m. on a regular basis. So,
Dang.
yeah, I usually do some late night writing. But at the end of the day, I always make sure to make time for my family because they're the reason why I'm doing this on top of my love for creating. Like, I want to be able to say, hey, like, this is what is sustaining us. This is the legacy that I'm leaving for you guys. This is, what I built for you to take care of us, to make sure that we're good to go. So it would make no sense for me to, push them to the side for something just so I could come back later on and be like, hey, I did it for us. You know, I always make sure to, when I come home, my youngest is 2, and he'll actually be 2 in a month. He's 2, and every day when I come home, he runs and greets me at the door. And I'm not gonna push that to the side just so I can go write for an extra hour. Like, no, he needs to see dad. He needs to see dad working, but he also needs to see dad doing his thing and spend time with dad. And my oldest is almost a teenager. He's getting to a point where he's a preteen now, so he's starting to be less. Think dad is less and less cool, but I'm fine with that.
Right,
I'm fine with that. We still spend a lot of
right.
time together, and I make sure to have conversations with them regularly about what I envision for them, and not just that, but why I do what I do. And then my wife is super supportive. I actually credit her with being the reason that I finished my first book because she stayed on me about it when I was writing, and every time I felt like I was gonna quit, she's like, "So you gonna quit or like, what you gonna do? Like, what's it gonna be?" either you're gonna be a writer or you're
Right.
not. Like, what's it gonna be? And so she pushed me, and once I got through that first one, I was like, okay, I'm good. But yeah, I would not be able to be the writer that I am without them.
Mm. So I was discussing this with another guest we had on. I want to get your opinion about it. Obviously, being from this demographic. So what do you think are all the black male writers?
You said, what do I think of them?
Like, where do you think they're at? The number of them. What is your opinion on black male writers in this industry?
I don't know. I don't think it's as prevalent as it should be. Um, I mean, I think in film, you'll probably see more in film than actual authors. Um, but I think in order to be a writer, I don't want to say you have to be a reader as well, because that makes it seem like black men don't read, and that's not true. But I don't know. It's difficult because, like, when I talk to I have friends who, talk about writing, who say, man, I should write a book and I've got an idea for this. And they ask for my advice, but they never put pen to paper.
Right.
And so maybe it's because of the lack of encouragement to be writers. Maybe it's not something that's pushed as much for black men. But I definitely don't think the numbers are where they should be. I would like to see more black writers, although as I've immersed myself more in the community, I've found that there are more than I realized, but still not as many as I would like to see.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you do mention that, is because, yeah, when you think about like film, and there are so many stories, but it's also unbelievable because we have so many stories. You know what I mean? So like
Exactly.
our lives alone could be multiple stories, multiple books, but it just seems to be that, I don't know, that we're the lowest demographic when it comes to being authors.
That is true, and I don't know why that is. I'd be interested in doing a study and seeing like why.
Yeah, we're the
Like
disconnect.
I bet you if you were to exactly, like I bet you if you were to do like a poll and see how many black men or black men or boys have a story that they would like to tell versus how many are actually trying to tell that story, there's probably like a wide range. Because I guarantee you, if you were to go, like, if you were go to talk to like some young boy just coming up somewhere and ask him like, hey, if you were to tell a story, like, what would your story? If you were to write your own comic book, what would it be? Like, I've had these conversations with my son, like, if you were to write your own superhero, what would his powers be and things like that. And it's like he has those ideas, but he doesn't have the desire to tell those stories. And so maybe it's the fear of not being heard. It very well could be the fear of if I tell my story, no one will listen.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's something there. There's definitely something
there. So what do you think is next for you?
Next for me is probably getting some help. I realize that I've done a lot by myself, and I think it's about time for me, if I want to grow myself into the author that I know I'm supposed to be. I need to enlist some help, and whether that's hiring somebody or getting a literary agent to represent me, I'll need some help in the near future. So that's the next step. Probably is finding what is the best avenue to expand my team, expand my brand, and the people that are a part of my brand.
That's crazy. So, how important is that in general, not just to you, but in general for success, having a team behind you? Because obviously you see the film aspect of it, which is it's I'm not gonna say it's impossible to do it by yourself, but it is a lot of work to do it by yourself in terms of making films.
Well,
So
according to Tyler Perry, he do it all by himself. But look, for me, having a team is very important. But I think the most important part about it is making sure that whenever I do have that team, that they share the same vision as me. It's kind of like I was saying before, like, you know, you can't drag people to their own success. And so anybody who, if I ever decide to bring, or when I do decide to bring somebody on, I will have 100% confidence that that person wants to see, you know, my books at the top just as bad as I do. And, you know, I think for some people, it's hard to want to see someone else's success. Like I was explaining to one of my friends, because I was talking to him. He was like, man, I'm gonna come work for you. I was like, well, I tell you what, I was like, if you were to come work for me and you were to work as hard as I needed you to, best believe if I'm on, you on. And that's
Right.
how I feel. That's what I believe. But it's hard to give that much time and energy to something that you didn't create. And I understand that. And that's probably why I'll go the literary agent route, just because that's their job, is to see your product and see, okay, this is his story and this is what it could be. This could be a movie. This could be a TV show. This could be something great. I'm going to make that happen for him. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I definitely want to make sure that whenever I do get a team, that's the focus, is that whoever is on my team, that they see the vision, that they see what all it can be, and not just what it could be, but, you know, beyond that, like what are the next steps? Like for my comic book series, for example, like I was talking to a friend who actually invested in my Kickstarter, and he was like, "Man, when I look at this, I see action figures, I see, you know, trading cards, I see a cartoon show." I was like, "Yeah, I actually had plans for all of that, so I'm glad that you can see that. We just got to make it happen." And that's kind of the type of vision that I need for anybody that's going to be on my team. Is like, don't just see like, oh yeah, this is a great book, let me help push this book. But no, this book can be a movie. It can be so much more than just the book. So it's hard to find people like that. But when I do find that person, that's the type of person I want on my team.
And you mentioned the Kickstarter, and I think that's important because a lot of authors don't they don't know about utilizing these resources, or they just don't know how to navigate and operate these resources to raise money for their project. So break down Kickstarter for authors out there who don't know.
Absolutely. So, well, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding program. So basically, you have a project. It could be like trying to get some books printed. It could be trying to get a comic book illustrated, which that was what mine was getting my comic book illustrated. It could be, you know, whatever project you have that's going on. And then what you do is you set a goal, and you know, let people know if you donate to this goal, you'll receive some type of benefit on the tail end once we've reached our goal. So for me, it was, if you donated $5 and you got a poster, a Golem Gladiators poster. If you donated $15, you got a free comic book. Anyone who donated $200 or more, you got to design your own character who would appear in the series. So there's just a few different things. And then the important thing about doing a Kickstarter is that you want to, one, make sure that your goal is attainable. So you have to think about your network, because ultimately that's what it's going to be, is the people that you know are going to be the ones that donate. You will get some outsiders, but it's going to be mostly people you know. Think about your goal, make sure it's attainable. And then also you want to make sure that you're doing your part to reach out to people. So with my Kickstarter, I was reaching out every day. It's not something where you can post once a week and expect to hit your goal, unless it's just like you got the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you know, even still, people have to hear about it in order to donate to it. So I probably promoted daily, multiple times a day. and I mean, not donated, but promoted myself daily and multiple times a day. And then I made sure that my goal was something attainable. And I made sure that my perks were something, the things that I was given on the back end were something that was feasible. So you don't want to promise people um, a graphic novel for donating $10 if the graphic novel to print is going to cost you $15. Like it's going to end up costing you more to print it than it would for them to donate. So, make it make sense. But other than that, man, you just got to make sure you got attainable goals and you're doing your due diligence to reach out to people, and you got to go heavy for it. Like, when I think some people, when they do things like Kickstarter or GoFundMe and stuff like that, all they want to do is reach out and say, hey, I got this. I'll do a post or status on Facebook saying, hey, I have a Kickstarter. Please donate. That's not enough. What you need to do is you need to form relationships with people. You need to reach out to people that you know. You need to introduce yourself to people that you don't know and say, hey, I know we haven't spoken before, but I'm really trying to raise money for this Kickstarter. This is what I'm doing. This is how much we're trying to raise. This is where we're at right now. If you can donate $5, that's great. If you can donate $1, that's fine. Whatever you can give helps. And I mean, go in people's inboxes, shoot people text messages. Don't be a creeper or a stalker or anything about it, but definitely, do the work. Because that's what it took for me is I had to, reach out to people that I didn't typically reach out to. I had to have conversations with people, but that was a good thing because it taught me how to sell what it was that I was trying to, interest people in. So the more I did it, I was like, okay, now I know what to say about this to get people to be interested in it. And if you were to pitch somebody, let's say you were to pitch a studio, you need to know how to do that. You need to know how to make a studio be interested in whatever it is that you're making. So, that was my thought process and it worked out for me. That was my second Kickstarter. My first Kickstarter did not go through. That was for a different project. It didn't get funded whatsoever. It got like $10 or something like that. And that one, all I did was post a status saying, please donate. And nothing happened, nothing moved because people aren't engaged in that. They'll scroll right past your status and not even see it. You got to reach out to people and connect with people in a way that's more personable for them. So definitely get in the inboxes and reach out to people.
All right. So tell us where we can find your books at and get in contact with you, all your social media handles.
Absolutely. So you can find me on social media at Your Favorite Author. That's URFAVORITEAUTHOR. You can find me on Twitter at UR lowercase x FAV lowercase x author. And then if you want to purchase any of my books, you can go to Your Favorite Author, UR Favorite Author .square.site. And if you want to sign up for my Patreon, I also do exclusive writings that's only on my Patreon. That's the only place you'll find them. So like I'll do short stories, chapter releases from books that I'm working on, things like that. You can go to patreon.com/Your Favorite Author.
So real quick, where did that hashtag come from?
I always was like trying to market myself. Back when I did music, so my music name was NYG. So I had my hashtag 3 letters, do it better, NYG. And so I was kind of just thinking from a marketing standpoint. Lil Wayne used to be one of my favorite rappers. And for the longest time, every song he did said best rapper alive, best rapper alive. And, sometimes I kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like I wanted it to be something where eventually people will be like, oh, that's my favorite author right there. Even excuse me. Even if that's how you remember me. And I have people who they'll only refer to me as that. They'll forget my actual author name and they'll be like, oh yeah, your favorite author. Yeah. But I'm okay with that. Like, that I'd rather that be the way you remember me. Like, I don't want to I'm sure over time it'll be, my name will be the forefront, but that's been my hashtag, and that's what I've been rocking with for about 4 years now.
Man. All right. This is my guy, N.M. Porterfield. I appreciate you stopping by the
Absolutely.
podcast, man. It was definitely dope. Definitely a lot of good information, man. And we
Absolutely.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Fiction Addiction Podcast. Make sure you visit fictionaddictionpodcast.com for links on everything we talked about today, as well as awesome resources, additional tips, and fiction addiction merchandise.